their family are their kids learning in the way that they should? If they're having to do Zoom, are they sort of backsliding in terms of their education and sort of mental faculties because of all the stresses and strains of this new reality and the balance all this? I thought this was a smart play by dealing with the real issues that people are experiencing because of COVID right now. Dana, what did you think?
Yeah, I think definitely what David and Nia said, the way I was kind of looking at it and thinking about it as I was listening to him speak is he was taking the reins of the campaign conversation and trying to pull them back to where he and his campaign wants it. And that is to talk about, as David said, character, but I would use another word, and that is leadership. To remind people and to implore people to understand that where we are right now, that kids can't go to school, that parents are having to figure out whether or not they should stay home with their kids or give up their job and how they're going to deal with that financially. All of those issues that people are dealing with as we speak in a very, very real way, his argument was this was all preventable. Not that the pandemic was preventable, not that the virus was, but the ability to deal with this could have been different had you had a White House and a president.
Preston, what do you need?
Angel dust. I don't think that he meant to use that term, if you know what that means, because that is street name for a drug. But he was trying to say that the president talked about
Hi guys, make sure you have pencil and paper. Make sure you have pencil and paper. Soon as everybody gets here, we're gonna watch a video and take some notes and then do our chapter. Hello, welcome back. It's a short A. Oh my gosh. You smacked your head, Sebastian? No, it looked like you did. All right, I'm going to start the video. Make sure that you have paper and pencil so you can take notes. This is our second video on theme, which is important for understanding life lessons that the story is trying to teach you, teach the reader. So here we go. Oops. Pay attention and take notes. I will be stopping as we go through. Let me let this person in, or these people in. All right. Theme, this is called theme. It's number 2, the second one we watched.
I'll take the R2 unit. Come on, Moby, how many different takes do you need? No, I don't want to switch roles. Dear Tim and Moby, how do I figure out the theme of a story? And why is finding the theme so important anyway? From Bob A. Thanks for the questions, Bob. A theme is a central message or idea woven into the action of a story. Themes give a story meaning by linking the fictional.
It's very slow when I'm trying to stop it. So one more time, I'm going to play that little bit.
Thanks for the questions, Bob. A theme is a central message or idea woven into the action of a story.
Central message or idea woven into the story.
Message or idea woven into the action of a story.
Into the
Themes
action
give
of
a story meaning by linking the fictional world with our own.
Theme links the story with things in reality, things that are actually happening or could happen.
They comment on issues from our everyday lives and from the wider culture. They're a huge part of what makes films and literature so fascinating. If you've ever read a fable, you already know a simple type of theme. Fables always include a moral, a lesson.
Always include a moral or a lesson. Themes always include a moral or a lesson.
about life. Take the tortoise and the hare.
About life.
The hare is always bragging about how fast he is, so the tortoise challenges him to a race. The hare is so confident, he stops to take a nap halfway through. Slowly but surely, the tortoise passes the hare and wins. It might seem like the story is all about speed and running. The larger message is that patience and determination pay off.
Patience and determination pay off in the story's moral theme for the turtle and the hare.
We write that down.
Yeah?
Can you say that again?
Patience. Let me let him say it.
All about speed and running. The larger message is that patience and determination pay off.
Patience and determination pay off is the moral theme of the tortoise and the hare. Patience and determination pay off is the moral theme of the story, the tortoise and the hare. All right.
A race is used to communicate a lesson that can be applied to real life. Themes are usually more subtle in movies and novels. It's easy to be wowed by spaceships, aliens, and princesses, and those are essential parts of the Star Wars story. But to find the themes, we have to read between the lines. Well, not literally. We have to look for patterns or ideas that come up frequently.
Patterns and ideas that come up frequently lead to the theme. Patterns and ideas that come up frequently lead to the theme.
Can you say it one more?
Patterns and ideas that come up frequently lead to the theme. So think about Summer of the Mariposas. What are things that come up frequently in that story that we've seen so far?
La Llorona.
La Llorona comes up frequently, but it's not the person, it's what she does, the event, the action that she takes, that it would be part of the theme, okay? What else comes up frequently in Summer of the Mariposas? Think about it, something that flies.
Butterflies.
The butterflies. There's a theme in those butterflies too. Okay, so things like that you want to look for in the story. The author's not going to just give it to you. You have to read between the lines. Why does she keep talking about these mariposas? Why does La Llorona keep coming up and saying A, B, and C all the time? Why is she saying the same thing basically over and over? Why? That's what leads to your theme. Patterns and ideas.
The repetition of a word or phrase is a good sign you're onto a theme. We call those recurring words or images motifs. The Force is one big motif in Star Wars. We learn more about its symbolic meaning each time it's mentioned. Well, like at the beginning, the Force seems to be just a magical power. But over the course of the series, we learn that it's much more than that. It's a universal energy that connects all living things, and a spiritual balance between light and darkness. Themes are often set up as pairs of opposing ideas, like with the Force.
Write this down.
At its most basic level, it represents the struggle between good and evil, but it's all...
Okay, one set of themes, good versus evil. Good versus evil.
Also about nature versus technology.
Nature versus technology. Nature versus technology.
The tension between instinct and logic.
Instinct and logic. Instinct and logic.
Or the choice between freedom and destiny.
Freedom and destiny. Freedom and destiny. And while you're writing those down, also put man versus nature. Man versus technology. Man versus man. And man versus self. Those are also themes that you need to know.
What's the third one with the heart and the brain?
Let me go back.
G. The tension between instinct and logic.
Instinct and logic.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Does anyone need anything else repeated? These are all newer themes, more modern themes. The ones that I gave you, man versus man, man versus self, man versus nature, man versus technology, those are classic themes. Okay?
Or the choice between freedom and destiny. And they sound complicated, but those themes are all right there in the movie. We find them by analyzing the story elements. For example, we can examine lines of dialogue which the characters say. Like when Darth Vader calls the Death Star a technological terror. Then he says the colossal weapon is nothing compared to the power of the Force. His comments set up technology and nature as opposing ideas. Plot, the action in a story, is another great place to hunt for themes. Okay, Moby-Wan, I will use the Force. I will trust my intuition. We did it, R2. We destroyed the Death Star. Right, Luke is successful because he relies on the Force. His natural instincts are victorious over destructive technology. Well, in a great story, all the elements work together to support the themes. Look at the settings in Star Wars, where the action takes place. The Death Star is massive and spotless. Like a lot of advanced technology, it feels sinister and cold. Compare that with the Rebels' ships. They look and feel lived in, like a home. Even the costumes with that contrast. Stormtroopers wear masks, and their uniforms are totally rigid. They look more like machines than people. Our clothing is loose, comfy, made of organic materials. Well, appearance is a key part of characterization. That's all the ways a character is portrayed, how he looks, speaks, thinks, and acts. Remember when we first meet Moby-Wan? He lives a simple life, not surrounded by gizmos and gadgets. He's a respected Jedi Master, but unlike the bad guys, he's humble and has a sense of humor. Now, those themes really resonate in today's high-tech world. Anyway, let's get this place cleaned up. Dad's gonna be home soon. What? You are my father? No! No!
Okay, it's a little weird after that. We are going to start reading. You're going to need to know theme and the parts of theme for your next test. So make sure you keep your notes. You also did not get analogies on your last test, so that's going to be part of it. You have to keep your notes in order to know, be able to go back and look at this during your test, your quizzes. Okay, so let's go to reading. And guys, when you leave class from now on, I'm not letting you back in because all this does is interrupt us over and over and over. Okay, so you leave, you're gonna stay out because it takes time to have to reopen the class for you. I was lagging. Okay, let me know. All right, it's probably the Wi-Fi. I don't know what's going on. All right, I'm gonna stop this one and start the story. We are on chapter 13. Oops, right there. So take notes, see if you can identify any theme information as we go through, because she does mention a couple of things that should be part of the pattern, okay? Okay. Here we go.
Chapter 13. The arrows. What precise feathers the arrows must have in order to fly. To say that we found our way quickly would be to lie. It took us hours to get back to the right path, or at least the path we hoped was the right one. Who was that, do you think? Another witch? A sorceress? Delia asked as we plodded along the moonlit path. That was the great mother Tenantazine, I said. I've been using her amulet, this ear pendant, to call on her for help along the way. La Llorona gave it to me. She was right when she said we'd need it. I peered at the lamp in my hand by the flickering light of our waning flashlight. It was hard enough not to be able to read the map without having to worry about missing the landmarks altogether. But with the moon hiding behind a cloudy sky, they were impossible. You mean she's the one who gave you these earrings? Delia asked, reaching up to touch the ear pendant hanging against my right cheek. We have special protection, Juanita said as she ran up to join our conversation. Isn't that cool? Yes, it is, but there's more. La Llorona said we have to remain noble and kind. If we do that, everything will be all right, I said, relieved that she finally believed me. Then, remembering La Llorona and all that she had done for us so far, I began to wonder why she had not been the one to come to our aid. Had the Nagula been too powerful for her? If that was so, had she asked the goddess to help us herself? Was La Llorona ultimately behind our salvation? I wonder if Mama knows what the song is really for, Delia said. Mama had sung that to us so many times I couldn't count. Now that the fog of the Nagula spell had lifted, I couldn't believe I hadn't made the connection sooner. She probably doesn't. I mean, who would have thought that some supernatural being... Dude, you guys, stop. All you should have in your hands is a book, and that's it. I mean, well, who would have thought that some supernatural being was going to show up and save us because we sang her a song? Delia asked. Will somebody get the door? Stating the obvious. I always thought Mama's lullabies were magical, Peta whispered. When we were young and Mama used to sing to us, I felt special inside. I know what you mean, Juanita said, wrapping her arms around Peta, her voice so sweet, so loving. I always felt like we were more than her children. I felt like we were her life. It's almost as if she knew someday her lullabies would keep us safe from harm. So she made sure she sang to us every night. It's a wonder we forgot that song. Oh boy, it's getting deep out here, Vilia said. What makes you think Mama knows anything about Tonantizine coming to save us? Because I'll be honest, I didn't know what the heck was going on when the goddess showed up. Whatever, Juanita retorted, letting Vilia's negative comment slide right off her back, like cold butter off a warm tortilla. All I'm saying is Mama knows the song for a reason. Someone taught it to her. It's a lullaby, right? So it's been passed down from generation to generation. Mothers have been singing it to their children since the time when Mama's ancestors, the Aztecas, were overpowered by the Spaniards. I followed the map and shoved it back in my backpack. Well, the bottom line is La Llorona gave me the earrings to invoke her, and Teresita kind of let us know Tonantizine would come to our rescue, and she did. But now it's time we moved on. I pulled my backpack over my shoulders and started hiking through the thick brush of the overgrown path. That's not true, Vilia complained as she began to follow me and Juanita through the woods. Teresita never said anyone would help us. She just said that we had to sing the songs of the birds. I know, I was listening, and I have a photogenic memory. Photographic genius, Juanita spit out angrily at Vilia, who had caught up and was now walking between us. It's called a photographic memory. And anyway, I don't see how that would help you remember what was being said, since photographic memory deals with sight, not hearing. Okay, stop it, both of you. I don't want to have to separate you again, I yelled, moving between them as we made our way through the shrubbery and into a clearing. Well, Teresita didn't tell us we were in danger of being boiled alive in a cauldron. So forgive me if I don't put too much stock into what that old bag of bones had to say, Vilia complained, hiking her backpack higher up over her shoulders before she stalked ahead of us. I have a feeling there's a lot Teresita didn't tell us, Vilia said, stopping to take a swig of water from a gourd. She didn't warn us about the Nagula. She wasn't very specific, Juanita said, turning back to face the road again, ahead. Yes, but there was more, I said. They knew what I was talking about. You mean the coven of lechuzas? Juanita whispered, looking at me sideways. We've got to find a place to hide for the night, because before they find us, Vilia said, looking to either side of the dirt path. Well, what do you know? Ask and you shall receive. Vilia punched my arm and pointed to the right of the path. I peered into the darkness, but all I could see was the faint outline of faraway mountains against the dusky horizon. What is it? I asked, giving up my poor eyesight. A barn, Peta screamed. She ran up in front of us and jumped up and down in place with excitement. Hello.
Hand these out to the students' names usually during advisory, please.
Sure.
Thank you.
Uh-huh. Now hold on, I said, putting my hand on Peta's shoulder. Settle down. Let's not get ahead of ourselves. What? Vilia wanted to know as she joined our united circle. What's wrong? Nothing, I said. Nothing's wrong. We just need to make sure it's okay to go in there. We need to be cautious. That's all. Teresita's husband said we could rest here. Why do we have to be so careful? Vilia asked, joining us as we faced the barn. We just have to, that's all. Well, who's coming with me? I asked, looking around for volunteers. Not surprisingly, nobody said anything. You guys are like gallinas, chalucas por gato? Guato? What does that mean? What does it mean, Adon? You're laughing.
Right there.
I don't know. Oh, she translates it right here. A bunch of clucking chickens, all talk and no action. I started across the grass, heading for the barn on my own. Although I was scared, I wasn't going to show it. I was the eldest. It was my job to bring them to safety. Of course, leaving them alone on the side of the dirt road in rural Mexico wasn't my idea of protecting them, but I didn't have much choice either. Wait, Juanita ran after me. Do you think it's really safe in the barn? I mean, what if the lechuzas are in there? Don't be ridiculous, I said. Lechuzas don't hide in barns at night. Owls are nocturnal predators. You should know that. You've seen every animal documentary on the Nature Channel. Oh yeah, ever heard of a barn owl? Juanita taunted. What do you think a lechuza is? It's an owl, genius. Try keeping up. Whatever, Miss Gifted and everything. I'm going to go check it out. Are you coming with me, or are you going back to cower with the rest of the broody hens? I guess I'm coming with, Juanita said, but she didn't sound too sure of it. Good, I said, starting off again. Let's get on with it. I'm tired, and judging from this humidity, it's going to rain soon. Side by side, we hiked through the overgrown meadow off the beaten path. We had to be very careful because the field was full of burrs and stingweeds. So we traveled slowly, stomping the tall grass down as we went. When we finally got to the barn, we found an old oil lamp hanging just inside the door. I jiggled the compartment in the inside of the tin relic and found 2 long thin matches. While Juanita held a flashlight over me, I lifted the filthy cobweb glass and lit a match. To my surprise, the wick lit right up, and after shaking it a bit, I could hear that there was enough kerosene in it to keep it going for a while, maybe even all night. That would help keep PETA from getting scared. We should conserve what's left of the battery. I turned off the flashlight and stuffed it back in Juanita's backpack. Looking around the barn, we saw that it was most definitely abandoned. There was some old rusty tools lying about, and some desiccated straw lined the far left corner, but half the roof was either missing or about to fall off. Nevertheless, we decided it was in good enough shape to offer us some semblance of security for the night, however pitiful it might be. The girls were delighted to hear the news. Once inside, PETA walked around the poorly lit barn for a while, playing with an old rusty rake and a pitchfork she'd found in a stall. The rest of us emptied the contents of the backpacks and lay on several rumpled layers of clothing. Unlike PETA, who was still playing with the rake, Juanita, the twins, and I had no desire to expend any more energy than we already had. It had been a hot, tiring 2 days of walking since we'd left El Sacrificio, and our journey was far from over. If Teresita's husband, hand-drawn map was even sort of accurate, we hadn't covered half the ground we'd intended to today. We were just content to rest our feet and curl up in a semi-cozy place. I got PETA to finally settle down beside me, but even after everyone else fell asleep, I lie awake, looking up at the stars through the hole wide in the ceiling. We had traveled so long and so far from that first night, when I had seen the series of stars fall from the sky like a meteor shower, that I wondered if we'd ever get back to that life again, back to those long, playful days without danger or witches or warlocks. At the thought of Mama crying every day, fearing for our lives, tears started to prick at my eyes, and I wiped them away. It was then that I saw several tiny figures flying in and out of my field of vision over the barn. Bats? I asked myself quietly, sitting up to get a better look. No, Juanita whispered as she too sat up. They look too big to be bats. I know, I said, keeping my eyes on the creatures above. I shook the other girls awake. What? Velia mumbled, half asleep. Leave me alone. They're here, I whispered, because by then I had figured it out. Velia sat up so fast she stirred Delia beside her. Who? Mama? Delia sprang into a sitting position beside her twin, and her eyes went to the doors on the other side of the barn. No, I whispered, pointing at the creatures. They had stopped flying and were now perched side by side around the hole on the ceiling, peering down at us from the darkened heavens. Lechuzas? Velia asked, searching the sky above. There's 6 of them, I said, nodding. I counted them twice. Then it's not them, Juanita said, putting a hand to her chest, still scared but sounding pretty relieved. You need 13 to make it a true coven. They must be regular hours if there's fewer than that. Maybe the other 7 are dead, Velia whispered. Or maybe, Velia interjected, they split up and the others are on their way. I remained frozen, unsure of whether a reaction would startle the Lechuzas into an attack. Regular owls aren't that big, and they don't travel in broods, I said. No, it's them. I reached for my backpack slowly, trying not to show fear. All right, pack up your stuff.
Okay. Take and write down any notes that you want. There are several figures of speech in there, different types of language.
Okay, I started. No, not your whole face. There you
and
go.
There is.
Are you happy now? Okay. Go get to work. I share your
references
conversation about chapters 13 and
Turn
14.
your screens on as well.
Everybody Juanita whispered from beside me on the nest of clothes. Go get to work. You look so good. I asked, confused. A group of owls is a parliament, not a brood, she explained. That's chickens, hens actually. Oh, like that matters now. I started to move my hand slowly toward the tiny front pocket of my shorts, pulling the piece of silk string out of it without drawing too much attention to myself. Sorry, Juanita said. Do you have the string? Yes, I whispered. I put it in a safe place as soon as Teresita handed it to me, but I need you to wake Peta up without scaring her. Once everyone's awake, you'll have to form a protective circle around me so they can't get to me while I tie the knots. Okay, Delia and Belia whispered in unison. I could hear the lechuzas whispering menacingly above me, up on top of the roof, but I couldn't understand what they were saying. I unzipped the tiny front pocket of my shorts as slowly as possible, trying not to draw attention to myself. But the minute I pulled out the piece of marked silk thread, the lechuzas launched themselves off the roof and flew into the barn, wailing and screeching. Startled awake by the lechuzas' blood-curdling screams, Peta sat up and screamed almost as loudly as the winged witches. From that moment on, hey, get your conversation on task. The lechuzas descended upon us with all their fury. As they came at us, I saw that they were as big as vultures, and their wingspan was twice their length. Their long, straggly hair streamed behind them like raggedy, moth-eaten capes as they flew at us. But the most horrific parts of them were their faces. They looked like dried up pieces of fruit, desiccated human faces, witches with metallic beaks for lips. The coven of lechuzas squawked and screeched as they flew in and grabbed at us with steel talons, pulling out chunks of our hair, shredding our clothes and scratching our arms and hands and faces as they flew by. One at a time, they soared up into the rafters and swooped down to do it all over again. If they had been less aggressive, less calculating, we might have been able to defend ourselves, but they were so fierce and erratic in their attacks, we never stood a chance. Niñas malas, said one in Mama's voice. Malcriadas, said another in La Llorona's voice. Egoístas, said one in Cecilia's voice. Arrepiéntanse, said another in Teresita's voice. According to them, we were evil children, spoiled, rotten, and selfish. We should repent. They kept chanting over and over again as they scratched at us with their sharpened talons. Repent, repent, repent. Stop, Juanita screamed as she swatted them away with her hands. Stop, stop, we cried as we whacked at them. But no matter what we did or how much we begged, they wouldn't stop. If anything, their viciousness grew even more intense. As they started to abuse us, the rain we had been expecting started to pour down on us through the holes in the roof. There was no escape from the feathers and the rain. The wind picked up, and I could hear thunder in the distance. Anthony, I'm going to take it away if you don't get on task. Gio, sit down. Find one. There's plenty of chairs in here. I could hear thunder in the distance. I remembered the piece of silk thread and realized I was still clutching it, but no sooner had I looked at it than one of the lechuzas clawed it out of my hand. I tried to hold on to it, but the evil bird was too strong. She flapped her wings in my face, slapping my head with her sharp, bristly feathers. I was tugging against her, holding onto the string for dear life, when one of her feathers pricked me right in the eye. An intense pain shot through my left eye like a bullet, and I let go of the string. Taking the string with her, the lechuza flew out of the barn, through the hole in the roof, and into the darkness and rain. And just when I thought things couldn't get any worse, Velia and Delia rolled away from the rest of us, screaming. They had made a mad dash for the door at the other side of the barn. With two lechuzas at their backs, they busted out of the barn as if their heels were on fire, never once looking back. Had they abandoned their hermanitas? I looked at the barn doors, noisily slapping back and forth with the force of the storm. I couldn't help but feel powerless. The twins' desertion shattered my hope, any hope I had left of defeating the malevolent witches, and for the first time on our journey, I wanted to cry. But there was no time for that. With the twins gone, the remaining lechuzas concentrated on the rest of us. Two of them dived so fast and hard into me, they knocked me over. One of them sat on my chest. Another one had Juanita pinned face up against a pile of clothes we had used to make ourselves a nest. Yeah. Peta was pressed against the wall, shivering, while a lechuza pecked gently at her head, as if it were picking nits out of her hair. You like eating sweets, don't you? The lechuza said with Cecilia's voice, pulled Peta in close until their faces were almost touching. That's because you're a piglet, a little piggy with a piggy nose and a piggy mouth and a piggy stomach. You're a chubby baby. But give me time. I'll put some real meat on your bones, thicken you up, and get you ready to be eaten. My sisters and I haven't eaten much lately. Your big brown eyes look delicious. I bet they taste sweet, slathered with jalapeno marmalade. How do you like your adventure now, you arrogant little twit? A lechuza with Inez's voices asked Juanita as she caressed her face with the bristly feathers of her left wing. What, do you think you're smarter than them? Well, you're not. You dragged them all into this mess with your self-righteousness. Juanita sniffed and hiccuped as she tried in vain to stop herself from bawling. Oh, what's the matter now? Why are you crying? Are you sad? Maybe you should have listened to your older sister. Maybe you should have stayed home and cleaned and cooked like your mother instead of thinking you've got brains. You think you can fool me? The one with Mama's voice asked me. She was sitting on top of me, kneading into my chest with her claws like a cat, laughing when I winced in pain. Answer me, she screamed. But instead of talking, I looked straight into her red, fiery eyes with what I hoped was disdain. What's the matter? Aren't you afraid? Want to run away? She asked. And when I didn't answer, she dug her sharp talons deeper into my chest. The pain was horrendous, and I wanted to scream out, but I held my breath instead. Of course you do. I know how much of a coward you really are. I know how irresponsible you can be. Who's the one who relinquished the piece of thread? Who's going to protect your sisters now? Who? She was shaking me then, grabbing me by my shirt collar and rattling me, like she wanted to loosen the last breath out of my chest. I closed my eyes and started to pray, silently at first and then with more courage and conviction, but my prayers were useless against her. Instead of getting off my chest, she started to laugh, a deep, cackling laugh that vibrated inside my head and made me lose my place in prayer. You, that's who, whispered the lechuza, her rotten breath caressing my neck like a dirty rag, penetrating into my every pore. You, she kept screaming in a parody of Mama's voice, spitting pultured saliva on my face. You dressed like me. You took them away. You left me crying. You lost the thread. Her words, spoken in Mama's voice, pierced through my heart, and I screamed in agony, No, it's not true, it's not. Just when I thought all was lost, Velia and Julia burst through the barn doors, wielding what could only be described as giant metal baseball bats. I don't know what kind of tools they were or where they came from. All I know is they looked absolutely dangerous. Die, the twins screamed as they charged in our direction. The lechuzas screeched angrily, let go of us, and scattered themselves around the room. One by one, they flapped their wings into flight, soaring above us, cursing our names and threatening to take their revenge. You take the pitchfork, I call the rake, I told Juanita. I scrambled to my feet and rushed to the other side of the barn where Peta had abandoned the rusty old tools. You can't hurt us, we're the Avengers, the devil's playmates, the one with La Llorona's voice screeched. You caused too much heartache and pain. You disrespected Cecilia, humiliated her, and now you have to pay. The one with Teresita's voice yelled from the rafters, You'll never get away. The one with Mama's voice screamed as she descended upon me. With all my strength, I batted at her with the brittle rake. She flew around me to avoid getting hurt, but she wasn't completely successful. I'd clipped her right wing, and she screamed in rage, or maybe it was in pain. I shook the feathers out of the rake and prepared myself for the next attack. Draw her close, Velia whispered. She and Delia inched themselves toward Juanita and me. We can take these witches, Velia announced. Watch your mouth, I warned out of habit, although this time I had to agree with her colorful language. These creatures were more than wicked, they were downright malevolent. Repent.
Okay, sorry, we have to stop there. See you tomorrow.
Goodbye.
It is good. Bye-bye.
Bye.
See you tomorrow.
See you tomorrow.